Today we're going to talk about a great book if you're in sales called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. The author is Robert Cialdini, and I love the book. It's something you have to read. It's a must-read. There's like 50 different psychological journals have referenced the book. A lot of people talk about it, and if you really want to understand the root principles of selling, this is a great book. So we're going to expand on each one of the 6 main points, but the 6 main points that we're going to talk about today are as follows. Reciprocation is number 1. We like to reciprocate and do for others what they've done for us. All of these principles that we go through you're going to notice they're very exploited by marketing companies all around the world. Your big corporations know all these things and they use them very effectively. But reciprocation is number 1. Commitment and consistency is number 2. We like to be seen as consistent and we like to keep our commitments. That's really important to us. And advertisers like to lock us into those types of things. The third principle is social proof. We're going to talk about that. The more people do something, the truer it must be, or the better it must be. Social proof, or peer pressure, as you might have heard it called, is really a powerful tool in persuasion. Number 4 is authority. People tend to follow authority figures. We tend to do what people we respect do, and we tend to listen to the opinions of people we view as authorities. Number 5 is scarcity. We've all seen this one many times. This is a limited time offer, right? The more scarce something is, the more value we seem to put on it. So scarcity is something advertisers use and persuaders use to great effect. And then the last one is liking. We like to do business with people we know and that we like and that we trust. We turn it into a we. You ever notice this at a sporting event? Somebody who's a fan for a team, the team scores a touchdown, it's like, yeah, we did it. It's like, we are a part of this. We like we. So Apple and Starbucks have done a great job, among a lot of other companies, on creating sort of a team, and we're all a group together. So supporting the cause, we all win. When the team wins, I win too. And that's a really important understand how to get people to like you and like what you represent. Creating that tribe is really important. So we're going to go through all 6 of those. That's the summary of the book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, and I know you'll love it. So the first principle in the book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, is reciprocation. As human beings, we have a really strong desire to pay back in kind when somebody gives us something. That means give them something of equal value. It's really innate, it's inborn in our species, and it's something that's very strong. It's not lost on advertisers and people who persuade people as well. Have you ever been to Costco and they give you free samples? When you get a free sample of something, you might buy it, even if it's not something you normally would buy. But because they gave you something, you feel a need deep down to reciprocate that. That's the basis of gift giving, right? We give somebody a gift and they feel obligated to give one back. If you get in the mail, you ever had a nonprofit association send you like a $1 bill in the mail, or like a mini calculator? They're banking on the law of reciprocation, or the principle of reciprocation. Hey, if I send you something, you're going to feel like you need to send me something back. You don't want to have this hanging over your head, so you're going to donate to my cause. When somebody buys you lunch and they say they want to take you out, or they want to take you out to lunch or take you out to dinner, if you say yes and you go, you then sort of later on feel obligated to take them out to lunch or them out to dinner. This can be effective in relationship building. It can be effective in business and in sales. People are always trying to give us things. One of the stories in the book that I really liked was he talked about the Hare Krishnas, the religious organization that usually sets up at airports. We've probably all seen them at some point, but they had a really interesting story about how they developed a way to get people interested in their beliefs and their religion. They would give people gifts at the airport. They would just give passersby a flower. And if you've ever had this happen to you, you probably remember it vividly. They might give you a pamphlet, but they would also give you a nice little flower. And just as simple something as that, a very simple gesture, made people read the pamphlet more and actually made them donate to their cause. They actually kept numbers. The numbers are all in the book. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was really dramatic, the difference. When they started giving these little gifts out, how much more money they brought in for their cause. So something simple given to somebody else is very powerful. That invokes the principle of reciprocation. The second principle I want to talk about today is commitment and consistency. This is a very powerful principle in the book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, that's used all the time. And we like to be seen as consistent. Have you ever heard of somebody saying, you know what, in 3 months I'm going to run my first marathon? They tell everybody they know, they put it on social media. There's probably some times during that 3 months where they're like, I don't know if I want to run this marathon. But they've made a commitment and they want to be seen as consistent to their friends and to their social group. So commitments, and especially public commitments, are very powerful. So I went to this real estate class that was 8 weeks long, and it was a lead generating class. The requirement for the class was to make 20 contacts per day, every day. And that's a lot. If you don't think that that's a lot, go try and talk to 20 people that you don't know to develop potential leads every single day. 20 contacts a day was the minimum requirement. But there was also this thing they called the Bold 100. So you get a pin if you actually completed this, and that was getting 100 contacts in one day. And you could do it anytime you wanted over the 8 weeks. You didn't have to do it. But the instructor was smart. So at the beginning of the class, this is my first time in the class, there's about 90 people in the class. The instructor walks up and says, who thinks they would like to join the Bold 100? Who wants to do that? And get 100 contacts in one day. Of course, I looked around and raised my hand. Me and 5 other people. I should have known out of 90 that that was a clue. This probably wasn't a great idea. So me and 5 other people. So he says, why don't you 6 of you, come up in front of the class. Come up in front here. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we all walked up. He put us in front of everybody, in front of the whole 90 people. He gave us our pins for the Bold 100 right then. And it's like, okay, what's the catch here? He said, well, here's what's going to happen. Next week, when we reconvene for our class, you're going to tell us all how you did it, how you got your Bold 100, or why you failed. Now, that is a really powerful invoking the law of commitment, right? Commitment and consistency. So every one of us did it. Long story short, the next week, all 6 of us got in front of the group, and we all told exactly what we did, how we got our Bold 100. It was not fun. It takes about 7 to 8 hours. I mean, it's an all-day commitment to do this, but we all did it. But the funny thing was, why did we do it? Did we do it, do you think, because we wanted to expand our business and get a lot more contacts, which seems obvious, right? No. We all did it because we didn't want to stand up in front of the entire group of 90 agents and look like fools because we made a commitment and now we failed. So being consistent and having a commitment to somebody publicly is very powerful. That's a very powerful method of persuasion. So be careful what you commit to. We'll talk about that later. You know, when you learn to say no to some things, because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So really think through what your commitments are. Advertisers know this. Publishers and marketers are very good at getting us to commit to things. Then we really feel strongly that we probably should follow through with it. So be careful what you commit to in the first place. Today, the third principle I want to talk about from the psychology of persuasion is social proof. Social proof is what we call like the herd mentality or peer pressure. If a lot of people are doing something, it must be right. The more people that believe something, the truer it must be. Right? We know that that's not true, but that's the principle of social proof, and it's very powerful. You know, think about this. You know, the Ford F-150 truck series, the #1 selling truck in America. Why do they say that? Why do companies advertise we're the #1 selling this or #1 in that category? They're invoking this principle, social proof. If a lot of other people are doing it, it must be the right thing to do. You know, advertisers are great at this. And there's a really good story in the book, a true story about a cult that was actually started back in the 90s for a comet was going to come to Earth with aliens on board. They were going to land down and take the people that belonged to this cult with them as the planet was going to be destroyed. Some of you might remember this. It was in the news. It was a pretty big deal. Well, the cult started off very small. It was like 15, 20 people. There was, you know, a couple of high school students, some professionals, and it really goes into the story in the book, and it's just fascinating. But what happened was there was supposed to be a time and a day when the spaceship would come and pick them all up. Well, the time and the day came and went, as we all know, and the spaceship never came, right? So you think, well, that's probably the end of that cult. They all just said, well, this was all a farce, you know, let's go on with it. That's not what happened. What happened is the cult actually grew tremendously from about 15 to 25 members to over 300 members within the next 6 months. And it grew beyond that. And you say, well, how can that happen? The whole premise of this was based on something that didn't come true. Well, the people that belonged to the cult before the comet incident, before the alien was supposed to come down, they didn't tell anybody about it. It was very secretive because it was something that just they were privileged to know. But once the spaceship didn't come, Now it's like social proof in your brain says, I've committed a lot to this. I've quit my job. Some people quitted their jobs. They quit doing things with their family. You know, people disowned them. This is really big stuff. And it's like, I've sacrificed too much. This has to be true. Not only is it, I can't accept the fact that it's not true, I'm going to make sure other people then believe it. So then they started talking to other people, recruiting other members of this cult. That's why the cult grew so rapidly, because social proof made them feel better about their belief system. This happens all the time. We think that's really funny, and you can read that story. It's fascinating. And you can say, okay, I understand how it happened with this cult, but it happens every day. And it happens to every single one of us. Right? Social proof is very prominent in fashion. Think about the fashion industry. Why do we wear what we wear? Why do people buy low-rise jeans or certain brands of shoes? They see celebrities or they see other people doing it, and pretty soon more people buy it. Now it's the norm. And social proof is there. It's like, this is what we should be doing. The more people do something, the more we think it's the right thing to do. Don't forget that. Marketing companies know this very well. So don't let that be lost on you. And if you're selling a product, how can you do that? How can you get social proof? Can you get testimonials from clients? Can you get video testimonials from satisfied people you've worked with? That's a great way to build your social proof. So today we're going to talk about liking. This is another powerful form of influence. We tend to do business with people that we like, people that we know, that we like, or that are similar to us, we're comfortable with. That's a very strong persuasive element. So think about that when you're running your business or you're watching advertisements on TV. Who do they show? Right? We're very much into what's like us, what's familiar. Familiar is very safe to us, and so we go down those roads. That's the team thing we talked about before, right? If we're part of a team, if we're part of a group, now the team and the group's victories are our victories. And really smart companies are good at getting us into their tribe and into their culture. So there's a few pieces to this I want to go over. Similarity to us is one of the biggest parts of liking. If it's similar to us, this is how cliques develop. Remember I went to high school? We all went to high school and you had like the athletes and the band geeks and the nerds and the social outcasts, right? We had groups of people that were like us, that we formed up together. We were comfortable with them because they had similar interests and they were kind of like we were. And that made us very safe and very comfortable. That's how cliques form in the first place, is that principle of liking. The second principle for liking is compliments. Marketing companies are really good at this, giving you a compliment, even if it's not true. We all love compliments. Now, I know nobody ever watching this has fallen for that before, because I know you're incredibly intelligent and super perceptive. So, did I mention that you're really good looking? Okay. That doesn't work on you. I know that. You're beyond that. But compliments work. Compliments are very powerful, and we love to get complimented. So be aware in advertising, what are you looking at, and who are they speaking to? They're trying to probably make sure that they like you, because you're going to like them back, right? And then another powerful piece of liking is association and culture. And that's where we talk about the sports teams. We tend to root for our gender. We tend to root for our culture. We tend to root for our locality. Like your local college is playing another college in a football game. It's us against them. And we want to win because we want the people like us to win. Because if they win, we win, right? So culture and association is really powerful as well. So they're going to show us things, advertisers are, that we're going to feel like, yeah, that feels like me. That looks like me, and that's who I identify as. So that's going to make me really want to buy that product, or whatever they're trying to influence me to do. They've got a lot better chance now because I like them and they feel like they're familiar. So look out for this principle and use this principle in your own business. Can you compliment people? Try and be true with it. Give them real compliments. But can you seek out ideal clients for you that this could all be authentic? I always try and tell people this. When you're hiring for your business or if you're looking for new clients, start with values first. If you get people who align with your values, it's much easier. You don't have to fake the like part. It's going to be natural. You are going to like them, and they're going to like you too. Today we're going to talk about principle number 5 from the book Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Again, one of my favorite books when it comes to selling. And this principle is authority. People tend to follow authority figures, or people at least they perceive to be authority figures. You've seen, I'm sure, celebrity endorsements. Why do you think companies pay celebrities millions of dollars to endorse their products? Because people tend to follow authority. Say, well, I don't follow authority, that doesn't matter to me. Well, most people do. This stuff really works. If you look at police officers, firemen, office managers, different professions that we view as authority figures, we tend to follow what they do and do what they tell us to do, right? Titles are a big part of authority. If they have a PhD after their name, or an MD, or an Esquire, or a master's degree, those are things that, oh wow, this person knows what they're talking about. I'm going to listen to what they have to say, and there's more credibility just because they're an authority. I always think about Michael Jordan back in the 1980s and 90s when I was really watching basketball a lot. Michael Jordan endorsed Wheaties. I remember asking a friend one day, he's like, I'm sure Michael Jordan has Wheaties for breakfast every day, right? No, probably not. But he's endorsing a product and they're paying him a lot of money to represent them. But whether or not it's reality, that's where we have to be careful. This is a powerful persuader, right? Authority. It doesn't mean it's true, but it means it does affect us. Another really strong piece for the power of authority is how people dress. Remember the movie Catch Me If You Can? Con artists exploit this all the time. If somebody dresses in a three-piece suit and looks really nice, we tend to think of them as more credible for whatever reason. So the way people dress can really influence us. And this is what we're talking about, influence and persuading people. So if you are an influencer, make sure you dress correctly, make sure you act correctly, and for what you're trying to get people to do, right? You want to make sure that you fit the part of what is credible to your audience. But that is a really big one, is authority. Come across as an authority figure. I always used to ask this question to people. If I followed you around, if you thought I was like an authority figure, you perceived me as somebody of authority, if I had a clipboard and I followed you around in your job all day long and didn't say anything, I just wrote down everything that you did, I just kind of followed you around, took notes, wrote down everything you did for one day on your job, be honest with me, would you do anything differently that day than you normally would do? And the answer is probably yes. You would do something different. I know I would. If I perceived somebody was an authority and they were sitting there watching me all day, I'd probably look busier. I'd try to get more done because there's that observer bias. We tend to think if somebody's watching us or if there's an authority figure, we better step up our game. Marketing companies know this, so they want to make sure they have authority figures endorsing their products. So the sixth principle in the book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, is scarcity. We tend to think things are more valuable if they're limited in availability. That's sort of a human nature thing. If something's scarce, it's rare, it must be more valuable. So you see health clubs do this all the time, right, with their memberships. This is a limited time offer. You better sign up today or the price goes up, right? You ever bought a car? Health clubs, cars, there's a lot of companies that use this to their advantage. You have to act now or the price goes up. Or there's a limited number of seats at this seminar. You better buy one now. I always remember in The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon talked about going to the Woolen Festival in Wisconsin. There's only 8,000 tickets left. It always makes me laugh. But yeah, scarcity is something that's really a powerful influencer. We want to move and act on something we think and have a perception is more valuable. Fear of loss, that's a really good part of this. Fear of loss is always more powerful than a desire for gain, right? We're always trying to avoid losing more than gain something else. And we can give you a lot of different examples of this, but if you lose money, you'll typically work harder to get it back than you will to gain money in the first place. And fear of missing out, we've heard of that, FOMO before. I don't want to be the only person not doing this. So scarcity is a very powerful influencer. So don't fall for that. When somebody says this is a limited time offer, sign up today or the price goes up, that's typically not true. And if you're using that, you want to make sure you do it from integrity. If there is really a reason, like the seminar has a date and we're getting closer to it, you better sign up or it's going to be gone, then that's true, right? Do things authentically. But pay attention, because marketers use this all the time. They use our fear of missing out or that scarcity concept to get us to act. It's used all the time. Let me know in the comments below if you experienced this before and how you dealt with it. Have a great day.